Well, hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. This is our last show for 2025, fellas. How you feeling about it?
The holidays are dry. That's all.
Oh,
It's been a good year.
well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Um, Also, fun fact, apparently StreamYard now has timers on their banners, and that's really annoying. So happy New Year, everyone. So we thought we would end the year doing something a little bit more fun. So we always try to do something practical and useful to teach you how to use all of the tools that have been thrust upon you. And this week is no different. But what we want to do, since it is the end of the year, is how to make your own 2025 wrap up. And so you can use what we're going to show you to here's everything we did this year. You can use it. I'm assuming there's a lot of different use cases where you can say, this is our end of quarter wrap up. This is my own personal career wrap up. But basically, you're seeing, Spotify and Apple and LinkedIn, and everybody has your year in X and what you did. Wouldn't it be great if you could build your own? So, Chris, where should we start today?
The hardest part of this entire thing is the data, getting the data and getting it into some format that a machine is able to process. Once you have that, the tools to do a wrap up are actually pretty straightforward, and we'll show probably the easiest one for folks to get started with. But the hard part is, where's the data and what data do you want to use? In rehearsing for this episode, I did a version where I used some of Trust Insight's internal data to do an internal wrap up. And I'm like, I can't show any of this on the air because it has tons of confidential information. Like, oh, you won this client for this amount of money. I'm like, that's true. And we celebrated that. It was a good thing, but I can't show that on the air. So I said, well, we'll do the Analytics for Marketers Slack group, sort of a group-wide wrapped to see or end your year-end summary as a way to do that as an example, because that's safer data than it is our proprietary confidential information. So
yeah,
first part is you got to get the data. Now, if you are an admin of an environment like that, you can literally just go into the admin portal and hit export the year, and it will just give you a big file. And that's what we did. If you don't have that, then you need to figure out how you're going to get a hold of the data and what you want to use. Say if you wanted to do your own version of LinkedIn Wrapped with stuff that you actually cared about, you could go to LinkedIn, go to your settings and privacy, and say export my data, and then obviously go through the spreadsheets that are generated, bring all the stuff that's 2025 out, and then use that. You could, I don't know how good an idea this would be, but you could go into your email and put all of your emails for 2025 into a folder, export that, put that into a system, and here's the greatest hits of my inbox.
Well, I mean, you're sort of like poking fun at it, but there are certain people that, think about like sales, for example, that your KPI is how much outreach did you do? And so if they're not tracking things in a system like a HubSpot or a Salesforce, that is a really good way to get your hands on that data. So think about the KPIs that you're being held to as an individual and where that data might live. So I think email is actually not a terrible use case. It's a matter of the context of what it is that you're looking for. Like, so for John, for example, like your whole role is making those connections and getting the contracts in the door and closing them. So looking at the emails that John has sent, I think is actually not a terrible, like, we're not actually going to do this, John, don't worry. But, it's not a terrible idea, because if we were a larger organization that we're not intimately aware of what we're all doing at all times, it would actually be a great way for John to present like, hey, here's everything I did. Look at all of the cold outreach I did, or look at all of the connections that I made. So therefore now, and it's a great way to sort of say like, hey, and now moving into the next year, here's what I want to make for money, and here are the goals that I want to set. So I just shot down your idea that it was a bad use case.
It's not a great use case for something I would do on the air.
Yeah. And that's okay. But I think in
Yeah.
general, when we talk about your own wrap up, in general. But yes, on air. Like, I'm interested to see what you pulled for Trust Insights privately. But yes, publicly, I agree.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. So a big thing that we do that for with emails is for client review. At the end of the month or end of the quarter, we'll export the client mailbox within our system and say, what did we do with this client? What were the greatest hits of the quarter? Particularly when you have clients who say on a regular and frequent basis, like, what have you done for me lately? And we can say, here's what's happened. So it's a great way to do that. So let's take a look at we'll walk through an example of how to do this. I will say that again, the data manipulation part is the hardest part. Everything else after that is easy. So we're going to use Slack, the Analytics for Marketers Slack group. When you go into Slack as an admin, you get a zip file. And when you open up that zip file into a folder, you get all of your Slack channels. And then you get a JSON file for every single day of every single channel. And so you get 1,731 files, all nice and neat, put together in one massive folder. This is kind of a pain. If you're going to use a tool like Google Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, 1,731 files is a lot. However, if you are skilled at the command line, skilled in using a terminal, on most modern computers, you have the ability to process this data to get it glued all together and then put in more manageable chunks. And if you're not sure what your computer has, this is a great opportunity to talk to a ChatGPT or a Gemini or whatever and say, I've got 1,700 files in nested folders. Help me write a command line command that will glue them all together into one text file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to say the input folder is AFM. The output folder is AFM.txt. And now I have one great big honkin' file. This thing is 27 megabytes of text. Y'all were real chatty this year.
And if you want to join the conversation, you can go to our free Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. It is a very chatty group, and it's something that I think that we really take pride on. It's a very engaged group. So I'm very happy to see that.
Exactly. Now, here's the problem. If you try and load that file into just about anything, it is going to blow up. I'll give you an example. Let's go into Google AI Studio because you can see just how big that file is. If I just drag that text file in here, AI Studio is Google's developer AI portal. It allows you to have the same access to all the models that in the Gemini ecosystem. 8.7 million tokens. That exceeds the memory of Gemini. It can't process that. There's no AI model on the market that is generally accessible that can process that much information. So, as ridiculous as it sounds, we now need to take that big file and split it into smaller files, but fewer smaller files. We started with 1,700 files. Again, using the commands that are available built into your computer, we're going to say, let's split this into files of 20,000 lines each, which is about, for most plain text, it's going to be about 1 megabyte. We're going to take AFM text and we're going to, let's see, what is the command to do? Oh, the initial suffix .txt.
So while Chris is doing that, I think it's a good opportunity to remind people that this is why you always want to do some semblance of requirements before you start exporting things and putting it into other systems. And so, Chris, one of the things I noticed that when you exported the data from Analytics for Marketers, it exported everything, every channel. I would argue that we wouldn't necessarily need to look at the data from every single channel. I know that there's a few channels in there that are for specific uses that we don't necessarily need to bring in. So, I think that that's why you would want to at least have a user story. So, as the admins of Analytics for Marketers, we want to know what the top conversations were for 2025 so that we know how to engage with our community in 2026, for example. Having some kind of requirements is going to help focus down the data that you're looking at, because we all have a lot of data. It can get really unwieldy. John, Mr. Chatterbox up here, probably has the most data of all of us. So we want to make sure that he's focusing down his conversations so that we can do justice for his 2025 wrap up.
All right, so we end up with 35 files. Each file is about 800 kilobytes. That's a lot more manageable. 35 files is something that Gemini still can't handle because it's the same amount of text, but it's split up into pieces. So we would use a tool like Notebook LM. Notebook LM can handle that much data very, very easily. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and put in all those files into Notebook LM. You can see they're all listed here as sources. And we start off by saying, I'll make this a little bit bigger. This corpus represents the Analytics for Marketers Slack group, a private community operated by Trust Insights. 4,500 marketers who have regular conversations about analytics, data science, and AI. Communities open to the public. We want to provide a summary of the top 10 most impactful conversation topics in the corpus in descending order. Impactful means that many members participate in the conversation, or conversation threads were unusually long. Show your results in a markdown list in descending order. So it goes through, processes all 27 megabytes of data and says, hey, your 3 topics are AI practicality and tooling, operational and strategic challenges, and non-work and fun conversations. Those are the big 3. For those who missed previous episodes of our live stream, you can go ahead and create media on the right-hand side. And the media those are great things to do things like slide decks and stuff. So a prompt for the slide deck might be something along the lines of, let me bring this into a new window here so we can see it. And make it bigger so that we're not going blind trying to read it. Say, make a top 10 topics of analytics for market Slack group slide deck using the Trust Insights brand standard guidelines. Count down the topics in reverse order from 10 to 1. Each slide should cover one topic. And then I actually pasted the output, because you can, so that you get exactly what you want as part of that prompt. So are you ready to see the wrapped for Analytics for Marketers, Katie?
I am.
All right, let's go into what analytics marketers really talk about, the top 10 things. AI practicality, tooling, operational challenges, community and connection, of course, those are the things. Number 10, AI tools for content creation and adoption. 20 replies, 14 users. Evaluate the feasibility of local AI setups, sharing which models are best for which tasks, initial presentations, and structuring essential documents. Right? So that's number 10. Okay. Any reactions?
No, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, believable.
Number 9, outdated sales and marketing tactics. Interruptive tactics like cold calling need to be returned. I remember that thread. Mm-hmm. In fact, John, this was something you put in the rants channel.
Yeah. This is like my weekly complaint post. So yeah, I'm fully unsurprised there.
Number 8, non-AI marketing tactics. The irreplaceable value of direct, authentic conversations, listening first, things like that. I think this was one of your threads, Katie.
I mean, to be fair, they're all my threads. I ask every question of the day. But yeah, this is something, a topic that obviously I know more about. So this is one that I likely weighed in on more. So it makes sense.
Yep. Number 7, marketing analytics terminology and confusion. Frequent confusion between different terms, differences between metrics and KPIs, frustration with Google's inability to name any product sensibly.
Yep. That also sounds correct.
Yep.
That's like 2025. Like, it's gotten considered, like, it used to be bad, but this year is just like times 100 as far as like horribly named stuff.
Yeah, they've just given up.
All right. Number 6, frustrations and critiques of AI, concerns over hallucinations, complexity of model naming conventions like Quen 3235B, A22B thinking. Yeah, good job. And societal environmental impact of widespread AI adoption.
We've heard a lot of a lot of our members have chimed in about that, which is a big topic in and of itself.
It is. We could spend entire shows just on that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, technical SEO and large data corpus processing, leveraging tools like Notebook LM, technical tips for managing context windows, advanced techniques like vibe coding for exploratory research.
Mm-hmm. It's been a minute since we've talked about vibe coding, but technical SEO, GEO, AEO, those are all very top of mind. So I'm not surprised. I'm going to keep saying it because it makes you disgusted. I have to find my joy where I can, Chris.
Number 4, AI automation tooling and implementation challenges, workflows, automation, core technical problems, agent to agent, and tools like Opal and Claude's agents.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely seeing a theme, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the types of questions that we ask, because we want people to respond with their shared experience. And a lot of times, the shared experience is, I'm struggling with this thing. Can somebody help me do it? Or does anybody have their version that will help me?
Exactly. Number 3, the Great Thanksgiving Side Dish Debate.
So we did have a comment. None working fun. I thought the Friday question of the day would crush all other topics. We are seeing, I'm guessing it's the top 3. Because those, if you don't know, on Fridays, we always ask a non-work related question. So it's as, excuse me, as professionally as unhinged as we can get, while still sort of keeping it on the rails. And people in this community love to debate things about food specifically, which is hilarious. So if you want to ever join those, again, it's free to join. Trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. This community is very passionate, for good or ill, about their food.
Exactly. It's not a real holiday meal if you can't argue passionately about the merits of green bean casserole.
It's true.
Which was a marketing trick. Number 2, operational bottlenecks and constraints. The biggest hindrances to workflow efficiency, internal political hurdles, and feeling overwhelmed with constant news cycle stuff.
Makes sense.
I love the quote about agile being way too rigid. That's awesome.
I think that was actually, I think I said that.
It's true. It is so funny. It was like the spirit of agile, but now there's people going around like, if you don't do it this way, it's wrong. You can't change agile.
And we could certainly, that's another topic that we could, highly debate for a long time, but it is the true agile practice is very rigid, very rigid. And so, anyone who wants to say like, we have to do true agile methodology, buckle up. It is not easy. It can work, but you have to have everyone in lockstep.
Exactly. And does anyone want to take a guess at what the number 1 topic of the year was?
If it's Taco Bell, Kelsey is so fired.
It is fast food fries.
Close.
I think. Well, that was the Taco Bell thread. I think
that was the Taco Bell thread. Yes,
she has turned every thread into the Taco Bell thread. No, I mean, I do remember asking this question, and it is very funny to me how polarizing certain foods are to people. And it just cracks me up, and I appreciate that everybody in the community comes to the table with an opinion and feels comfortable sharing that opinion, knowing that it's a safe place to do that.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the most important value of the community, particularly this year, which was a very stressful year for a lot of people for many different reasons, is having a safe place where you can kind of just, well, not in my case, but you can let your hair down, and be among peers. So these are the patterns, right? Practicality and tooling, operational challenges, and community and connection. And unsurprisingly, this pretty much mirrors who Trust Insights is, right? Katie, if you look at this is basically us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, for those who don't know, I am the one in charge of asking the question every day to start the conversation. So obviously, I'm going to be asking questions that relate to the work that we do at Trust Insights. I do try to make sure that I'm trying to give a well-rounded set of questions so that everybody feels like there's a place for them to participate. But it's, even when we say, like, tell us the good about AI, for example, it always naturally, organically turns into here's my frustrations and critiques of AI because that's just the human experience with these tools right now. So it's very interesting. And as someone trying to figure out how we can best support, you can't beat this kind of, free market research. This is directly from the mouths of people who are in it. And it further confirms sort of like the direction of where we want to take our services, our ICPs, all of those things. Like this is, you know, priceless data to me.
It is. Now, one of the things I think is interesting, and this is not a surprise given the marketing space that we're in, is even though the group is and has been called analytics for marketers for years and years and years now, we had very little actual analytics discussion because of the 800-pound gorilla in the room that is AI. And to your point, obviously we want to serve the needs of our community where they are, meet people where they are is what we always say, and where they were this year was around all things artificial intelligence.
Well, I would also like to caveat that, Chris, with I do ask non-AI questions, but someone in this room always takes over the thread with something AI. So there's a good reason why all of our conversations go that direction. So I could say, hey, so what's your favorite color? And someone in this virtual room would give me some sort of AI response, which would derail the thread.
Mm-hmm.
Chris,
Yep,
she's on to
sure.
me. She's on to me.
I'm on to you, John.
Oh dear. So let's see what else we got here. A reminder, a very nice call to action that you should be joining the Trust Insights community. Please do join us there. So this is how we did it. So we took the data, put it into Notebook LM, and then created the outcome, created the output. The versions we obviously have the slide deck.
Mm-hmm.
We have an infographic version, which is, again, very similar. And you can also do the video explainers, right? So you have the video explainers that have all the top 10 community topics, exact same thing, same prompts that we use, but it's just generated across all the different modalities. So if you wanted to do your own 2025 year-end summary, this Notebook LM is the tool that I would recommend that you start with. You can absolutely use ChatGPT or other tools or Gemini's plain image generation models to roll your own if you have the data. The hard part really is, how do you get the data out of the system? And if you have no data, but you wanted to make something anyway, you could go and get credible third-party data that you're allowed to use. So an example would be Reddit has an API. You could, if you wanted to understand a topic, grab a subreddit's topic conversations for the last year and summarize that using the exact same setup to see. In fact, that's something that we do every quarter for ourselves and for our clients. We look at what are the top marketing topical discussion threads and AI discussion threads on Reddit to see where the community, the broader community is, where people who are not us, where their heads are at.
I've actually used one of those notebooks and found it very helpful to understand people's opinions of the CEO or the C-suite in terms of where they're at with AI adoption. And it was nothing in the conversations surprised me. There's a lot of, people feeling like people in the C-suite are so detached from what's going on in the day-to-day, but it was nice to have the data to support that. Now, coming back to analytics for marketers, I can see a lot of other ways that you could be using this data. So if you run a community where you want to promote engagement or you're looking for your ambassadors, you could probably ask questions of your notebook to say like, who are the, top 25 most engaged community members, or, excluding the Friday questions of the day, which obviously skews the data because those tend to be more popular, or what are the non-AI topics that were sort of bubbling to the top, so that you could sort of look at it a lot of different ways, depending on what your outcome is. So for us, we can use that infographic as a social post to remind people, hey, this is a great place to come and have conversations. Here are the kinds of things we talk about. And then also, I guarantee our community members are going to be thrilled to see the kinds of things that they've been talking about all year.
Thanksgiving side dishes.
Mhm.
Yeah, you absolutely mine this for all sorts of stuff. You could take, the top places people want to have a conference. I remember that discussion happened at one point. Whose general fast food is better if you just want to start fights repeatedly between Kelsey and everyone else.
But we've also asked questions like, who are the people in your space that you would recommend that you follow? Like, who are the influencers? Who are the thought leaders? Like, all of that data, when you look at a community, it feels hard to pull out. But when you put it in a format like this, it's, here's the top influential voices, or here's who our community thinks are influential voices. And that's really useful for other people.
Mhm. And Katie, since you were asking and asking and asking,
I can't see what that says.
it says the person I was most connected to this year is on this call with me.
John.
No, dummy.
Well, and so if you haven't looked, LinkedIn has also sent out their version of 2025 Wrapped, and so it shows you like the emoji that you use the most, or the reaction, how many new connections you have, and then it also shows you the person that you connected with the most. And unsurprisingly, Chris and I connected with each other the most on LinkedIn, which comes as a shock to everybody.
Exactly. So in addition to, one of the things that is kind of a hidden trick with doing this kind of summaries, if you have the technical capability, plain text is great. And I would say plain text is what you should provide. But if you can, Notebook LM, lest we forget, is a Google product and is powered by Gemini. And in fact, it is powered by the brand new Gemini 3 Flash now, which came out yesterday. Which means that it has all of Gemini's strengths and weaknesses. One of which is that it is very good at reading, it's called JavaScript Object Notation, or JSON. What we provided in here was not plain text. What we provided was JavaScript files. So for example, the work-life balance pets channel, you can see this is what is in the source files themselves. It is this format of file, JSON. What that means is that a tool like Notebook LM can read this data with a good deal more accuracy, because it's like a spreadsheet, but in a version that it is capable of reading. We cover this, by the way, in our prompt engineering course and our generative AI use cases course. But JSON is easy for Gemini to read and understand, and it does a better job of doing basic operations like tabulating. They're saying, hey, here's who said this, because it's structured data. And so if you're going to do these kinds of wrap up things for yourself, do remember, if you can, provide it in that format, because it will do great with it.
So could you export data and then bring it into like a Google Colab and say, can you transform this into a JSON file for me?
Yes, and you can even do that in just like regular Gemini, as long as the files doesn't exceed the size of what it can work with. It will actually speak that language well.
So John, to give you more stuff to do, because that's one of my favorite parts of the live stream, is adding to your to-do list, is, when are we going to see the, top marketing over coffee conversations of 2025, or the topics that you covered? Because that's something that I think would be useful. I would imagine that, much like with our analytics for marketers community, the conversation tends to skew towards AI. Do you feel that that's true of the interviews that you've done for Marketing Over Coffee this year?
No, but the thing with the marketing over coffee stuff is always that because I've more than a number of times we've tried to do quarterly reviews or annually reviews, and the problem we have is more than half the content, close to 70% of the content, is so topical that it's stale within 3 months or less. So there's just the amount of reuse is astonishingly small. I think at one point I did like 3 years of material, and less than 20% of it was even relevant anymore. So much of it was expired and just, complaining about MySpace and stuff like that. So there was nowhere to go with it. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, the marketing over coffee wrap up, it would, pretty much just be lips and stats of like, okay, here's the interviews that did well. Here's the shows, the episodes that hit. But even that is really weird too, because I don't know, there's just so many things that happen where once in a while a show or an episode will get picked up in some random channel and it'll get a ton of action. And it really even has nothing to do with the content. It's just something that managed to get picked up and be promoted, and we see lift across the board. But yeah, coming up with this was the best 5 things of the year is definitely a challenge. There's not a lot of data as far as listening patterns and things like that. So yeah. Oh, well, and here's the most important one is I did one year decide to do like an outtakes and funny clips episode, just like take everything. It took so damn long that I was just like, I'm never doing this ever again. Like this is completely, if I want to, make this 500 times the work it needs to be. I guess that's something, if I had all kinds of hours over the holiday, load up 50 episodes and just have it pick the 5 funniest clips. But again, it's the same deal. Like I would be relying on AI's opinion of what's funny. I don't have people clicking the laugh button if I was like Instagram Live or something like that. So it's, I don't know, it's a rough problem to crack.
But I think that goes back to the point that Chris started with is you can make, your wrap up of anything provided that the data exists, and the data exists that is good quality and, doesn't have holes in it or is missing anything or has the correct context. I mean, that's really the core of anything is, does the data even exist?
Yep. So how would you go and get that? Because here's a funny thing. Notebook LM supports MP3s. Like you don't need to transcribe them. You can actually go and get MP3s files. So how would you go and do that?
Yeah, again, it's not about the MP3 as much as it is the audience feedback, comments made, or, like there's no way we can track people laughing in their car as they're driving around, like that's the real take. And then the other one is, none of the sponsors want any of their data out there. Like that's another chunk of relevant data is like, how many leads did you get? How many clicks did you get? All that stuff. And of course, nobody is going to share any of that stuff.
But if you were just to sort of like at a high level say, these were the top 5 topics discussed on Marketing Over Coffee, you do have the data. And I hear what you're saying about the topics sort of our place and time. But I know when you and Chris record Marketing Over Coffee, and by the way, for anyone who's interested, you can, where is it? You can subscribe at marketingovercoffee.com. Podcast hosted by these 2 fellows here has been going on for what feels like forever. You're entering into your 19th year?
Yes.
Yeah.
2,308 years. We actually predate Jesus.
But it's a long running podcast for a really good reason. And so if you were to pull like, here are the top 5 topics, that Chris and I talked about, for example, it's probably something to do with equipment, headphones, whatever the newest earbuds are, probably something to do with, AI in the news, and then, some books that would be my guess.
Yeah, that's it. That would be interesting. That would be worth doing. You just grab the shows and just say, hey, what are the percentages of topics? Like what was the breakdown this year? Yeah. And I'd be interested in other demos on the authors and stuff like that too. Like how many women guests were there? How many male, how many books, how many vendors, that kind of stuff. That's all interesting.
So let's talk through this because I think it would be interesting. So one of the things that is unique about Marketing Over Coffee is that John has a really sensible file naming system. the name of the show every week is exactly the same except for the show number, right? So you could say, if this week's episode, if you look at it, is MOC 898, and the previous week's episode number is MOC 897. So if I were to go to Google's Gemini, I could say something like, hey, create a list of URLs that decrement by episode number. Start here from 898, decrement by 1, go to 897, and show me the last 52 of these. So it went back and creates that list. Now, if we remember, Terminal is one of those things that if you're good at it, you can make your life a lot easier. There is a terminal-based utility called wget. Wget is basically a browserless browser that can go and fetch a file. So if I give it 50 some odd episodes of Marketing Over Coffee to download to my hard drive, which I did, I have all of these episodes. Like I said, Notebook LM supports MP3s. So I just drag all those MP3s in here. And now we can say, what were the top 5 topics that Christopher Penn and John Wall talked about in 2025, which is the corpus that I have provided? List the topics by frequency in descending order. And let's see what we talked about this year. So
I'm going some kind of audio is number 1.
Yeah, so in the time that you and Katie were talking about this, we were able to figure out the file. I knew the file structure because John is extremely organized, which we love, and be able to execute this. I did not have this pre-baked. So we have generative AI, large language models, and AI strategy, frequent discussion to get across nearly all episodes, gear, hardware, and consumer technology. There you go, Katie.
Yeah.
Nerd tech.
Exactly. Events, conferences, and travel, economic, geopolitical, and market issues. Boy, they got to get an earful in the Christmas episode. And social media platforms and algorithm changes. So those are the top 5 topics that you and I, John, discussed.
Which I think that's a really helpful, pull of information, because that's now something that John can use to promote the show. Like, hey, if you're interested in these things, here's what we talk about. Here's, what Chris and John talk about on a weekly basis that can become an infographic.
Exactly. So I can actually cue that up there as an infographic. Now, what John was saying, what are the top 5 topics that John Wall and special guests talked about in 2025, which is in the corpus I provided? Exclude shows in which Christopher Penn appears. Only use shows that John Wall had a guest interview on. List topics by frequency in descending order. Because again, Gemini, we can, as long as we prompt it smartly, it's able to digest this stuff down. Let's see what comes out. For the gendered stuff, that's something that I'd want to experiment with offline to see, because every model has biases built in, and that gets into some very tricky territory.
In terms of whether or not
how many shows did women appear on, how many shows did men appear on, etc., based on people's names, because we don't explicitly say, oh, and my woman guest today is
right. Well, I mean, and this is something that we were talking about internally the other day. There are some ungendered names for, I don't know if that's the correct term, but like, names that someone of any gender could use. So it's very hard to say it's this or this.
Yes, like the author DC Fontana.
It's
Sure.
Pat. It's Pat.
Yes. Top 5 shows talk about exclude shows Christopher Penn, generative AI implementation strategy, marketing strategy, branding and consumer behavior, social media management platforms, operational technology, software development, social and cultural integrity.
I mean, that's also a good promo for, if you want to pitch your person to speak on Marketing Over Coffee, here's the things that are covered.
Yeah.
Be prepared to have a point of view.
It definitely reflects our, like, nothing is too nerdy or too tactical for this show. Like where this is all deep dive stuff. People outside of marketing are just like, what is this?
Except for that doofus this morning that sent us the pitch. Like, hey, as a fellow spa owner, I'm like, what?
Oh, I didn't get that one. That's another fellow spa.
Let's take a look at the infographic and see what came up. There you go. Top 5 topics. I didn't even have the coffee cup in the middle.
So actually, in terms of infographics, John, that's not bad. I hope to see that on social.
No, I love number 4 too, because that was like one of the things that we laughed at. Remember all the way back when we had AI generate images of gear, and it would just like make these bizarre things with wires sticking out of it. Like you didn't even know what the hell it was, but that's clearly a drone and an Apple Watch and a mic and headphones. Like we've nailed it.
Yep. If you wanted to, in a different notebook, you can, with Notebook LM, provide lists of things like individual YouTube videos or a pile of YouTube videos. So you could give it like all the episodes, say, of this live stream for the year and see what are the topics we covered on this year's live stream. So there's no shortage of ways that you can, as long as you know how to get the data, which again is the hardest part. If you can get the data, these tools can make it super easy to do these year-end wrap-ups. And I would encourage people to give it a try. One of and this was in last week's Inbox Insights newsletter. It was last week. It was the week before. Do this whenever you are up for a review, right? So take your inbox, take your Slack, your Asana, your Jira, your whatever, export your data. And when it comes time for your performance review, you say, hey, here's what I did in the last year. Give me a raise.
Yeah. Prove your worth. That's just a huge time saver for any annual review process.
Exactly. And if you're a manager, maybe consider doing that across your team, because one of the things I know as a terrible manager, one of the things I suffer most is recency bias, remembering the last few things that somebody did and not the whole record from the entire year. Because you normally don't go back and, oh, well, April, you screwed that up. So unless it was really bad. And but if you are a manager, it can help you overcome your own recency bias to say, oh yeah, this is what this person did for the whole year, not just the last 2 weeks, which is all I can remember.
And I think that that's a good way to, round out the episode is, think about the data you have, think about the points that you want to make, and, use the tools that you have. So make your own 2025 wrap up, bring stuff into Notebook LM, see what it comes up with. And if nothing else, join the conversation in our free Slack group, trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. And you too can weigh in on the best cut of French fry and or the best Thanksgiving side dish. And other things more to come in 2026.
Oh yes. In fact, tomorrow, I think I had petitioned to have people try to use generative AI to make their own holiday song. So
yeah, you did. I didn't approve that idea.
No.
But don't worry, it's in there. Don't spoil it.
All right.
I didn't ignore you completely.
That is going to do it for this episode and this year of the So What live stream. So to everyone who has watched, whether this is your first episode or whether this is your 52nd, thank you so much for being here with us every single week. We are on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time on most weeks, except for the last 2, because we're taking off. And we hope that you participate in the Slack group, this live streams community, the email newsletter that comes out on Wednesdays. If you have questions for our podcast, which we record on Mondays and air on Wednesdays, we're more than happy to make stuff just for you to answer your questions. But most of all, thank you for being a part of our community. Take care, and we'll talk to you all in 2026. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.